fans, welcome back to 1237, back with another review. And if you follow my channel, you know that I am a huge fan of the film company A24. I've said for a while now that they are my favorite company for modern horror films. And more recently, they've become my favorite company for modern films in general, even outside horror. And I decided to build up my A24 collection, and I'm just going to do a run through of those. I've already done a couple recently. The Monster, Into the Forest, Green Room, and Uncut Gems. But I've got a handful to get to, and I've got an even bigger handful on order and will be ordering. So I'm going to be doing quite a bit. But this is, I think, the 16th A24 film that I reviewed. I think the 13th horror film. And technically it is a horror film. I guess more so sci-fi horror. Definitely much more so sci-fi, which is probably the reason why I put off seeing it, because I have not seen this yet. It still is a horror film. I've always known it as just sci-fi, which is why I was probably so not into it. But it's one that I've seen a lot of people talk about, and it's a movie that people either absolutely love and thinks it's super deep, very well made, and then there's people, which typical with A24, think it's either boring, nonsensical, confusing, and since it's the internet, they go completely hyperbolic and call it, dumpster fire, garbage, trash, which obviously they don't look at technical aspects of films, because I don't know how anyone can look at this and call it garbage. Even if you don't like the story, on a technical aspect, it is a beautiful film. And I've seen some places 2013, I've seen some places 2014. I'm going with 2013, and it is Jonathan Glazer's of Under the Skin with Scarlett Johansson. I haven't seen too many films with Scarlett Johansson, but this is definitely my favorite performance of hers. Like, yeah, I haven't seen the Marvel movies, so I know she's more known as like Black Widow, but which technically, in the name of the law, she's kind of a Black Widow in this, but well, not really, because she's not married to any of them. But yeah, I really enjoyed this. It would be in my top 10 A24 horror films, but if we're talking personal preference, like just favorites, it would be kind of low on the list. There are a lot that I really like and would put over this. But if we're talking like technical aspects and just like best made, yeah, it would probably be a lot higher, because visually this was an experience. And I'm so glad that the director Jonathan Glazer went with this route than his original plan, because I guess this took him almost 10 years to make. His first film, Sexy Beast, came out, I think, in 2000. And then he was going to go into this, which is based on the book Michael Fabin, a science fiction book by the same name. I didn't even look it up on it. Faber. Michael Faber. And it's kind of been compared to like 2001 Space Odyssey, both in the visual aspects and just the kind of sci-fi film it is. Also The Shining, because of just how different it is from the novel. Glazer specifically said he didn't want to shoot the book, but he wanted to make the book into a movie. I haven't read the book. I know the book is definitely more direct as to what's happening and why, whereas the film is definitely more ambiguous, which is actually the reason why I like it. I think that's the reason why a lot of people don't like it, is because it really does not explain exactly what's going on, even though there's plenty there to take away from. Now, a lot of people have come up with a lot of different interpretations of the film with themes and hidden meanings. This is kind of just my takeaway from it. But yeah, directed by Jonathan Glazer, screenplay by him and Walter Campbell, based on the book by Michael Faber, starring Scarlett Johansson, but also, it doesn't even give me the cast, but The Motorcycle Man was played by Jeremy McWilliams, who was actually a, a road racer. And I know the book has names, but here's just known as, I think, The Woman and Motorcycle Man. I'm just going to call him Scarlett and Motorcycle Man. The Daniel Landon, excuse me, did the cinematography, and Michael Levy or Levi did the score. And the score is one of the best parts of this film. It has a very classic Hollywood sound to it, like just a very eerie, kind of impending danger violin, which it even kind of reminds me of the Room 237 scene in The Shining, the one with Jack. Just that violin, the kind of like leading you to your doom. I love the score. If it's not that, it's like this very soft John Carpenter kind of beat. So the score is phenomenal. One of the best parts of the film. Now the overall story, which is very basic when you just look at the structure of it, or the skeleton of it, basically. Scarlett Johansson is an alien whose main objective is to attract, lure men back to her home, where they are then seduced by her, not fully, but kinda, where they walk into this thing that pretty much drains their insides, and their meat is harvested. Now, the obvious conclusion would be that harvesting the meat for food, or to send it back to their home planet, or to study it, it never explains it, and I'm perfectly okay with that. Because, like a lot of A24 films, I think it's more just about the concept and the themes within those concepts, rather than what's actually going on. Like, if this was made by any other company, or if any other company put this out, it would have been, well, you gotta explain, what the meat is for, where it's going, why it's going there. You gotta show someone eating it. You gotta, all this frivolous exposition shit, which this one does not get into, which is one of the main reasons why I like it. It just doesn't. So even though that's basically the, you could even call that the skin of the film, excuse me for the pun, but what's under the skin of that is, it's really a film about not just emotion, but specifically of empathy. And I know Glazer said he wanted to do a film about the human experience. And it really is just about this alien who at first she's this very cold, robotic, almost kind of android type character who discovers emotions and empathy and starts to become more human. Now, yeah, it's not AI, it's not, Starman or anything like that. It is still very, slow paced, dry, if you want to call it that. But it's still done very well. There's very little subtle moments that pulls that part of the story along that I thought was very well done. I can't really go into too much without saying spoilers, and like a lot of A24 films, I guess this is one of those movies where it's about the experience rather than entertainment. I think that's where a lot of people differ on stuff like A24 is they want to see a popcorn flick. They want to be entertained. They want to be dazzled. They don't want to have to think. They don't want the experience. This is an experience film. This is more of a concept that's studied rather than, you go in, you have a beginning, middle, and end with an arc over all of it, and it's sort of like a resolution, and you just shut your brain off for 2 hours. This is a lot more than that. So I think that's why a lot of people don't like it, and where it is extremely ambiguous, which I think works to the film's credit. I know a lot of people don't, but uh, I really don't want to say too much more without saying spoilers. But if you are into the A24 type horror film, the slower burn with more driven about themes or metaphors or concepts, lots of ambiguity, and more so just like the visuals and the technical aspects of film, definitely check this out. And a lot of the visuals do remind me of 2001 Space Odyssey. The very opening of the film, the sort of inside of our house, like where the men are lured to. It almost like 2001 if David Lynch directed it. The visuals are excellent. The score is amazing, and it really is a good story, like a darker, slower, kind of alien finding emotions type story. So with that, I'm going to get into spoilers. Now, I guess just to talk about certain scenes, like the opening shows like these orbs, black and white, that forms into an eyeball. We hear some kind of gibberish, which to me is the creation of Scarlett. And the gibberish is either her learning English or learning her mission in their language. Which Scarlett Johansson did learn the English accent. It takes place in Glasgow. And learned how to drive the kind of van that this was. And her accent, I thought was very well done. There's very little dialogue in this film, which is another thing I should have said before spoilers, which I really like. I like a movie that is willing to downplay the dialogue and just show us things. I love that. I mean, there's a film from 1955 called Dementia, where there's not a word of dialogue. 1988 or 89's Begotten, no dialogue. I love stuff. There is dialogue, it's just very minimal. I also should have said that Scarlett Johansson gets nude in this film, which I guess the director thought was going to be a big deal, because I haven't seen too many of her movies, so I don't know if that's just something she typically doesn't do, like if this was her first one. But he was surprised. He said he thought it was going to cause a lot of hype, like she's doing a couple nude scenes, but it didn't really stir much of a buzz. And I'm guessing, from what I've read, critics' ideas of that is because it's shown in a more analytical way, like she's checking her body out. It's not portrayed sexually at all, so it doesn't feel like a sexy nude scene. Just kind of a tidbit, I guess. So we see that, and then we see a motorcycle man dragging this other woman in, where naked Scarlett Johansson takes her clothes. We see the woman has a tear. Kind of looks like her also. And that to me says this was another alien that failed her mission, adapted human emotions as seen by the tear, and now Scarlett is taking over her role. And then she just the first half is really her kind of trying to copy human interests or interactions or movements to blend in more to attract men more. Like she sees women in the store trying on makeup, so she does it. And I guess all the scenes where she's in the van talking to men or when she's out at the nightclub was unscripted, made with hidden cameras, with just locals or extras. Like they didn't know they were being filmed, but then they were told. So it was unscripted, and I thought those scenes were well done. But she asks if they're married or if they have family, and if they're single and alone, she takes them. I guess just to keep down questions, I guess. And it is a slow reveal, which I liked. The first guy gets in, we see him riding in the car with her, and then we cut and he's gone. She picks up another one. and it's each one goes a little bit further. Like we see one go in her house, then she's back in the van picking up another one, to the point where we finally see, and I thought it was interesting how, like, when she's taking the clothes off the first woman, it's all white, this white sort of void, but when she lures the men in, it's just this black, like black nothing, and it's so beautiful looking. It's all black with a black reflective floor that you can't see any water, but like she's still walking up, and they just kind of go down deeper. And I like how there's just like spots of where they dropped their clothes. And even when they're submerged, it looks like they're in water, but their body looks like they're in water, but it really just looks like a void of nothingness, which was very interesting. And they have like this blue tint, and you can see Scarlett Johansson just walking above them, almost like ice. But then we don't see until the next scene with the next victim what actually happens, and that is, they get kind of puffy looking and slower, and then all of a sudden they just like, almost like when you suck everything out of a Capri Sun, just scrunched up, and then they just kind of float down like a paper bag down into the void of nothingness. And then we just see this conveyor belt going to this, just full of bloody meat, going into this vanishing point of this red slit. And it just goes until eventually it's just all gone, like it's all just sucked in. That's all we see of their mission, as to this alien technology, which originally it was supposed to be this big special effects film. And I'm so glad they went with this, because this was so much more aesthetically pleasing and more interesting. Just stark black. We just see everything get sucked out of them somehow. Conveyor belt, no explanation. That to me is more interesting and scarier than, being in like a ship and seeing all the contraptions do it and learning why. Also, it's just incredibly interesting looking and very beautiful to look at. I love how those sequences were shot. There's even and kind of to show how cold she is, there's a scene where she's watching a guy swim. There's a couple with a baby and a dog. She's talking to the swimmer. The dog gets caught in the undertow. The wife is trying to swim out to the dog. She gets caught. The husband tries to swim out. The husband tries to help him, but they're all lost. The swimmer washes back up, and she just hits him in the head with a rock, drags him, leaves their toddler there. And then later on, when the motorcycle man goes to collect whatever clothes is there, he continues to leave the baby there. But we see the tides getting a bit closer, which is kind of a harrowing scene, really. And again, it has that excellent, just darkly dramatic score. But as the film goes on, and each time she brings a man back, a motorcycle man gets right up close to her and just looks deep into her eyes. Eyes play a big role in this film. I mean, it's one of the first things we see, like with those orbs turning into an eye. He keeps checking out her eyes, I guess, looking for emotion. The whole window to the soul concept. But then she starts noticing more to humanity. It's not, like, at first she just sees humans and men specifically, and it never says why specifically men, not women or children or whatever. Some people have theorized it's like a reverse rape culture kind of thing, which in the beginning that's kind of where I thought it was going, was this kind of reverse, like, dangerous gender roles. And how women are so cautious as to their surroundings and walking alone at night or getting rides from men by themselves, whereas men have no consideration for danger or even don't have any worries of danger. They just get in a car with a beautiful woman, follow her into this dilapidated house, which we do see the outside of the house, and most of the inside is just like Fight Club dilapidated until they get to that one section. And kind of even more so because every time they're lured in, she just kind of strips down and walks backwards, luring them to that pool. And their eyes don't ever leave her. They're transfixed by her. Until she picks up a guy with a facial deformity. Which actually, before that, she trips and falls on the street. People help her up. A guy brings her a rose. She's sitting in the van. There's like a guy that gives out roses. He gives her one. But she notices blood on it. And notices he's wrapping up, a bloody finger from the thorns. Noticing there's something more to humans and that some humans have sort of this kind instinct to help people. So she starts seeing them as more than just objects. More than just something to serve a task. And so then she picks up this guy with the facial deformity played by Adam Pearson, who, he does have that deformity. He's part of a charity for people with deformities and anti-bullying, which the director did not want to use prosthetics, which I applaud him for that. And actually, the whole conversation between her and him was suggested by Pearson himself. He told Glazer what would have to be said to him in order to, get him to go along with her. So that's very interesting as well. And this is where she really starts to feel sympathy and empathy because, she feels bad for him. He says he's never had a girlfriend, doesn't have any friends. He's worried and shy about touching her, even though she won't, telling him to. And when they're doing the whole stripping and seduction, he's constantly looking around. He's more aware of his surroundings than her body. So he doesn't see her as like a sexual object. But he does go down into the pool, and then there's this long scene where she analyzes her eyes in the mirror, looks like she's tearing up. So she starts to notice emotions. Then she looks at this door where there's a fly buzzing around that's trapped to symbolize her wanting to escape. Which, when she first was created, she switched clothes. Her first interaction was an ant on her finger. So now this fly symbolizes her wanting to escape. So she lets the deformed guy go, but of course, a motorcycle man can't have that, so he abducts him. We don't see what happens, but presumably takes care of him. Also, she hears on the radio the thing about the couple on the beach with the baby, how they've gone missing, and she starts to feel for them as well. And so this is when she tries to become more human. She looks like she's experiencing fear for the first time, not knowing where she's going or what she's doing. There is a scene where these young men just start attacking the van. She goes to this restaurant to try cake. She knows humans like cake, so she wants to try to eat cake. Can't consume it. She's on the train, meets this one guy who's very nice to her. And there's all these subtle things to just show that it kind of like a fish out of water, but with emotions. Like he's watching, I don't know if it's a Betty Hill, some classic British comedy show. He's laughing at it, but she's just kind of confused. Like she doesn't understand joy, laughter, humor. But he takes her out. They go to like a ruined fort. He helps her downstairs. He carries her over a puddle. She examines her own body in front of the mirror. She notices this is a genuine nice man who cares for her. She wants to make love with him, as humans do. But then it's not explained to us, but when they go to, she can't. She pushes him off of her, and it looks like she's examining herself. Doesn't say if she has the hardware to do that, or if she just doesn't understand it. But then that's when she realizes that, she can't be human. She can't be with humans. So she decides to flee into the forest. And this is kind of where it comes full circle, because she runs into this logger, who the logger is actually the owner of the logging company that we see in the film. She sees him, goes to like this cabin where hikers can stay, wakes up to him touching her. She runs away. He catches up. That same music that plays when she lured men is playing. And then you have an attempted rape scene, which, similar to Into the Forest, a different way of how to film it that's very effective. Kind of not slow motion, but slower than actual speed. No audio, just kind of that score. Mostly focusing on him and what tearing at her clothes. I guess because we're supposed to see the evil and viciousness of this human that she's seeing. But then he notices something and runs away, and that is that her skin is ripped up the back to reveal this black, sort of featureless skin, when she then takes her skin off. And imagine like a Mystique, but black, no hair. And his first instinct is to come back and douse her in gas, light her on fire. And she just runs into the snowy field and dies. And we see the man on the motorcycle on top of this mountain just looking around, not knowing where she is, thus breaking the cycle. So if he found her, he would not be able to bring her to another alien, start all over again. The cycle is now broken. Which apparently, as of 2020, there was supposed to be a TV show based on this. I don't think that's needed, but... So yeah, that's pretty much everything that happens in the film. And I guess with the logger's reaction is kind of a play on how humans can view people as sexual objects, but then when we see them for who they really are, we're kind of put off or turned off or even repulsed by that person. Maybe it's shallowness, maybe it's just human instinct to be sexually attracted first and figure it out later. But it kind of plays on that, or at least that's what I took away from it. And I mean, yeah, it does have those themes of gender roles and feminism, like the reverse rape culture aspect, which really is what I thought the whole film was. But that's really just half of it. The first half is her on her mission, and the second half is her escape and try to live like a human, adapt, and really try to discover and sort of explore these emotions that she's never had before, or see if she could even have them. So I guess the ultimate question is, by the end of the film, did she feel emotions? That's one of those ambiguous things that, I mean, I think by the sight of it, from what I gathered, she did. I mean, maybe, I don't really know. From what I got from it, I think she did, which is why just as she started to feel it, that's when she was killed. But, I really like the ambiguity of all of it. I like how it doesn't explain everything. I love how stripped down it is. Like, the whole alien technology, how it looks is fucking beautiful. Just that black void of infinite nothingness. It doesn't even look like water when they go down. Just looks like air that they're floating in. but just that visual of her walking on top like glass, and how they're just kind of, and then just that visual of all the meat going to that red slit with black all around them. I love that. Love the score. The score is still, I mean, probably one of, if not the best score, definitely to an A24 film that I've seen either in a while or ever, really. But yeah, the score really worked. Love Scarlett Johansson's performance, even if a lot of it is kind of, I don't really want to say stiff or robotic, but I guess vacant would really be the right word. I loved her performance in this. I really liked just how everyone she interacts with was just kind of real people. It almost made it seem like an alien interacting with real people in the area. Like the guys on the street or the logger, that's who they really are. Or the deformed guy. I liked how they subtly show that she's trying to become human. And just these little cues, like the fly symbolizing escape. But yeah, I really took it as the opening is the creation. The first woman was an alien that discovered and found emotions, and therefore she was taken care of. The job now goes to Scarlett. And then by the end of the film, she's dead without the motorcycle guy knowing where she is. So now the cycle's broken. That's what I got from it. And so, yeah, I mean, it certainly is a horror film. I would say the sci-fi elements are probably more so sci-fi than horror, but still a horror film. And it would definitely be in my top 10 A24 horror films. Probably somewhere closer between 7 and 10. But if we're going by just how it's made, the technical aspects, it would be a lot higher. There's just a lot of other A24 horror films that, just personal preference, I happen to like more. And I'm sure anyone will argue that this is more of a sci-fi drama, same way people probably won't call Killing of a Sacred Deer a horror film, even though that is too. The horror isn't, like your typical horror. A24 is more the horror of the situation, really, or the concept. And this was a concept that I think was explored and executed in a very visually interesting way, a very interestingly ambiguous way, and every other aspect around it is just wonderfully done. The performances, the score, how it's filmed, the direction, especially a lot of the wide shots, like the exteriors. It's a beautiful looking film, and especially so when we see the sort of alien technology sequences of what happens to these men. So yeah, I really liked Under the Skin. One of those films that I regret putting off for so long, but I definitely enjoyed it. It was certainly an experience. So I think I have 4 or 5 other A24 films here to get to. I think I have like 3 on order. Then I have like another handful that I will be picking up or ordering. It's probably going to be between 30 and 35 by the time I'm done. And then when I'm done reviewing all them, then I'll do the countdowns, like top 10, best horror, best non-horror, collection video, all that stuff. So, sorry this video was so long, but there is a lot to dissect and talk about with this film. And again, a lot of people come up with their own interpretations. This is just what I took away from it. As basic as it might be, it's just what I got from it. So, yeah, stay tuned for all that, and thank you for watching.